Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar presentation discussing video and phone interviewing. If this is your first webinar, welcome, and I would like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Amanda Henty, and I am the Alumni Professional Development Coordinator here at St. Louis University. I started my role in July of 2015, and since then I have been working on establishing and strengthening alumni professional development programming, and this webinar series is a part of that initiative. So now I would like to quickly introduce our speaker today, Ahmar Ursani. Ahmar is one of our career counselors here at SLU, and he will be our speaker today. Welcome, Ahmar.
Thank you so much, Amanda. A pleasure to be here today to talk to you about video and phone interviewing. So let's go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a career counselor here at St. Louis University. My background is in social work and psychology. I've been in this university since 2015 and in this certain position since May of 2019. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our topic today. So we'll start by talking about the purpose of interviewing. The main purpose of an interview is to show enthusiasm, knowledge, and competence towards the position that you're applying for. It is your first opportunity to show an employer that you can communicate effectively and that you're a generally nice human being who's pleasant to be around, which is as important as being competent in your profession. You prepare for this interview by practicing your responses to answers, presenting yourself professionally, and doing yourself a favor and researching the company before the actual interview starts. You can do this by going to the company's website, reading about programs that they're having, reading a little bit more about their organizational structure, for example. So the first thing to do before an interview even starts is to prepare for questions. So make it clear that you are in this position for a reason. Relate specific experiences and credentials to the job description. So experiences that you've had in the past that relate to that actual job description. Build those anecdotes. I always tell my students you should have 10 to 12 anecdotes ready to talk about the various points of your resume that you want to discuss. But don't avoid a chronological biography of yourself. You want to make sure that you're hitting high points of your professional development and journey. And make sure you know yourself. Go through your resume line by line and think about stories that these resume bullet points can pull from. You want to include stories about times that you've struggled with a certain project. How did you overcome that struggle? You can talk a little bit about conflicts that you've resolved, opportunities that you've been on in a team setting that you helped leverage your skills to make sure that team was ready for the next step in that professional development journey. So what questions will employers ask? As you can see on this slide, there's a few questions here. We never know exactly what an employer is going to ask. So what we should really do beforehand is prepare our anecdotes. So the one way that you can prepare anecdotes connects to your learning style. So for example, I am a visual learner and I like to make timelines, word clouds, charts, explaining my anecdotes. Stories and interviewing is all about being able to tell a concise narrative eloquently and professionally. In order for me to do that, I want to connect to my learning style and create these visual clouds to make sure that I know that my story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And one way to organize that behavioral type of question is through a formatting technique called CAR. So you'll see that on the right-hand side. It asks you to give a circumstance overview. That's basically giving a background of your story. The action is what specific task did you do to accomplish a certain goal that you were assigned within a workplace? And then the result. What did you accomplish? So that structural framework will help you organize and visualize your anecdotes that you'll be building for your employers. Now, just a few before and during interview and video tips here. So for phone and videos. So before the interview, make sure that you have a voicemail mailbox reading set up in case you miss a call. You want to make sure that if you are interviewing through Skype or any other online platform, that you have a photo attached to that account. You want to make sure your screen name and background for the video interviews are work appropriate. So make sure you find a quiet place with a few audio or visual distractions. If you're on a phone interview, you want to make sure you have a strong cell signal. If you are on a video interview, you want to make sure that you have good Wi-Fi connection. Sometimes when you're doing phone and video interviews, you might be in a different time zone than your employer. So do double check that you are getting the time zone correct and make those adjustments accordingly. The great thing about phone interviews is you can have materials with you. So keep a copy of your resume nearby. If you have references, keep that nearby as well. But don't read from your references or your resume, or don't read anything that's scripted, because you're not going to seem and appear to be authentic. You're going to appear to be more so robotic. During the interview, make sure you're paying attention to your tone and your volume. You want to make sure you do that more. It's more important via the phone or via a video interview, because you're expressing your enthusiasm electronically or through a telephone wire. So you want to make sure your tone and your volume enunciates and really shows your enthusiasm for the actual position. Make sure to avoid ums and uhs, likes, you knows. Those fillers are going to be even more apparent in video and phone interviews, so you want to avoid that as much as possible. You can have some cheat sheets with you as well, especially for a phone. For a video interview, that's a little bit more complicated because you'll be looking directly at a webcam. However, if you want to keep a post-it note nearby your computer, feel free to do that as well. So let's talk specifically about phone interviews again. Once again, and I'm re-emphasizing this, logistics. You want to make sure you have the right date, the right phone number, the right time, and especially when it comes to that time zone, because you don't want to have that embarrassing moment where you show up an hour late to a phone interview. Dress professionally. And I know this is over the phone, but dressing professionally helps you get into the mindset of, this is a professional interview. I need to take it as seriously as if I was walking into the headquarters of this organization. Posture is incredibly important for interviews as well. You want to sit up straight as if you are speaking to someone in person. That sitting up straight and having good posture will help you enunciate and deliver your stories and your lines professionally. We talked a little bit about cheat sheets. You can use those, but please remember, you shouldn't be reading off of cheat sheets. They should just be one or two words here and there to help you remember the main points of a certain story that you want to tell. And the importance of enunciation is incredibly important during phone interviews. You want to make sure you don't sound dull. It's very easy to sound dull during an interview, especially on a phone. So make sure that you are smiling while you're talking over the phone. Make sure you're transmitting that enthusiasm through, if you're a person who speaks with their hands. I'm doing this right now. I'm speaking with my hands because it helps me enunciate. It helps me show that enthusiasm towards that employer. And by the way, these general tips are adapted from a great book that I really love. It's called The New Rules of Work. It's a modern playbook for navigating your careers by Alexandria Kavallakos and Catherine Minshew. All right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about video interviews. So with video interviews, lighting and camera angles that are flattering and a setting that is uncluttered is incredibly important. You want to make sure that if you're doing a video interview, that the employer can actually see your face properly. You also want to make sure that you test your technology beforehand. Make sure that if you have a certain Wi-Fi connection that it can be spotty, that is not where you're sitting and doing this video interview. You want to make sure the Wi-Fi is strong. And for example, we actually have video interviewing rooms within our new career services suite. So if you want to request our room to do a phone and video interview, I'll give you directions towards the end on how to do that. You want to make sure your Skype username is work appropriate. You don't want to have something that's inappropriate, because that's going to immediately off the bat send a negative signal to your employer. If your sound quality is not great, please use headphones or headsets. And if you are unsure how to get those equipments, you can always find them at Amazon for pretty affordable. And once again, professional dress is incredibly important here. You should dress just like you were going to an interview in a headquarters. Make sure that you're looking straight into the camera. That's your laptop's camera, and not on your computer and looking down. If you need that cheat sheet, make sure that it is a sticky note version during a video interview, because if you're looking at a cheat sheet, you're constantly looking down, which is not a good sign for a video interview. Make sure you don't have any other windows open on your computer. An instant message ding, a Google chat ding can be very distracting. And smile and use your natural body language. You should treat this just as a face-to-face interview. So a new phase in interviewing is called pre-recorded interviews. So a pre-recorded interview, or sometimes we call it a one-way interview, are a new job search interview process. So basically you're given questions and you record yourself responding to those questions. And then you send that recorded message back to your employer. Sometimes you get the questions beforehand, sometimes you get to practice and do a dry run of these interview questions, and you may even try recording yourself with that limit. If you're given 5 questions and you have 2 minutes to answer them, make sure you give yourself a dry run so you know how to pace yourself during that pre-recorded interview. And make sure that even though these pre-recorded interviews can be awkward, make sure that you appear as natural as you can and show your enthusiasm for that position. Sometimes you have multiple attempts to do these pre-recorded interviews, so that's why practicing beforehand is going to be incredibly important. Building those narratives are going to be incredibly important. So now that you've made it through the interview, one of the big things that may be asked you, and probably 100% will be asked, is, do you have any questions for me? And the answer is always, and enthusiastically always, yes. You should develop at least 3 to 5 questions you can ask the interviewer, even though you're probably going to only have time for a few. You always want to develop questions that relate to the position. So that research that you did beforehand, research the company, making sure that you looked at their website, program details, develop questions from there to ask the interviewer at the end of your interview. That shows professionalism, and it also shows that you've engaged in that research process. You always want to thank the interviewer. Make sure that you have their contact information so you can follow up within 24 to 48 hours after the interview. You do not want to send a thank you email right after that interview ends. That's showing the employer that you didn't have give yourself time to think and process through that interview. It's not only polite, but this will make them consider you again. That message that you send thanking them will be like, oh, I remember Ammer. He interviewed really well, and I really like this certain point that he brought up. I'm going to make sure to tell that to the hiring manager. Other candidates will send thank you notes, and don't give them the competitive advantage by not sending a thank you note. So remember, in the note, you reiterate your interest, you thank them again. If you forgot to share any information during an interview, you want to share that information now, and you want to provide additional materials that you may have offered. So a question that we get asked a lot is, should this thank you letter be written or via email? And 100% that is your call. There is no uh, good or bad thing about an electronic or written notes. For me, I like to send written notes because it's a lost art form, and I feel that it is important to send written notes. However, an email is just as valuable. The important thing here is that you are sending a thank you. Now, all of this can seem overwhelming and can seem a little daunting. So know that we are here for you. Alumni have career services for the rest of their lives. You're forever Billikens. So the best way to get ready for these interviews is by practicing. Helps you get rid of those nerves. It helps us talk about how to build those anecdotes that we want to talk about during an interview. You can meet with me one-on-one or in person. We actually have a interview application called Interview Stream on Handshake, and that is a great way for you to practice how to record yourself and really emphasize, oh, I do use a lot of filler words. How can I work on that? Oh, I'm really struggling with giving responses in 2 minutes. This is an application which you can find on Handshake to help you practice. An interview stream, it records you, so you can watch yourself being interviewed and you can also hear yourself. So it's a great application. I highly recommend that you use it. And if you are signing up for a mock interview, I'll likely send you a message asking you about details for that position so I can develop personalized questions for you. Just know that we're here to help. You can make an appointment by calling our number, 314-977-2828. And we also have walk-in resume reviews Monday through Friday from 1 to 2. There's 10 to 15-minute review of your actual resume. We're located in Griesbach Hall. We just moved this fall semester. We're in Suite 120, right at the ground level of Griesbach Hall. And our social media platforms are here as well. So please follow us on social media for updated news. And my email address is right here. And feel free to call or email me for any future guidance. Thank you so much for listening today and look forward to seeing you.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and thank you, Ahmar, for your presentation and helpful information. We hope you can join us for future presentations, and everybody have a great day.